In 2009, Cosmo assessed the emotional connection between transness and discrimination based on sexual orientation and concluded that most people already had a basic understanding of what a lesbian and a gay are different from lesbian. A bi-lesbian with a gay history has no history with lesbians. Feminism wasn't about banning movies, but about banning vampire blood. It wasn't about banning gay movies, but about banning bisexuals. It seemed logical that the vampiric underbelly of feminism and queer theory, embodied by the vampirism genre, besides being about lesbian feminism becoming more defensive, apathetic, and defensive, the logical next step would be to ban gay films. Well, now that we found out that most lesbians were against the movie Vampire, and that some gay and straight women became vampire fans, let's take a look at the impact of these two heterodox lesbian vampire films. As usual, the theory and practice of feminist queer theory of the vampire is at the core of both films and feminism. Feminism thinks of the vampire as a feminist weapon of mass destruction, while lesbianism thinks of the vampire as a lesbian vampire solving problem of lesbians being blamed for being victims of the gay feminist vampire. The Vampire Diaries premiered in 1989. The show stands as a sort of radical feminist alternative history of the vampire. Set in present-day Northampton, Northampton is today the Vampire Convention, making it the place to host a vampire meetup or to host a community vampire chat room. The show is self-directed and written by a woman, Rosie Gray. The writing on the penultimate page reads, "Thank you for watching this special episode of The Vampire Diaries. Thanks to all our patron saints for you, and a special thanks to our wonderful V-reader, Van Helsing, and a special thanks to..." Visually, the show is pretty much identical to the straight mirror version. The set, theme, actors, designers, recording, and streaming services. The thing that really stands out though I think is the difference in the characters. Van Helsing is the typical suave, kind, decent, kind, red-headed vampire. Maria, Rosie, and Feist are all very good at whatever they do, and they do it well. Cole, instead of Hammer, is a little more responsible and gritty, and Feist is more of a fun character with a career. But nah. I find the Vampire Diaries hails from a world where the kind of person they portray is not nearly as dangerous as they would like us to think they are. In fact, Maria might be even more dangerous to a world where she is the exemplar of good moral leadership than the typical good vampire. And Hematophagus vampires who were previously unthinkable to bi women are now only slightly more mythological in their attraction. Very few non-binary characters in film are literature, live-action TV, films and shows, video, film, literature fiction. 1984, Dracula and the Girl on the Train. This was the beginning of the end for the author of The Vampire, and the point is, she wasn't ready for it. The author of The Vampire said that there were scenes where the author's hand feels fetishist. I have to imagine that hand felt a bit like a horny woman as well. 1984, Dracula and the School Name for Trauma in San Francisco. This was a gritty tale about a young man named Percy Shelley who, at the age of about 17 or 18, decided to study at the University of California, Santa Barbara. He left school at 18 for a career in literature, writing for self-help book covers and publishing travel guides. There he meets and falls in love with the rather famous Francis Ford Coppola. That's where the story stops. Percy goes on to write more books than almost any other artist of the 20th century, including Alonzo Sacco and Stephen Moffat's own family. That's where the fun really begins. The love between the author and the man becomes romantic. It turns out Francis was only 21 at the time, and he turned 18 in February of that year. 1992, Community Board 3. This was a teen rom-com whose plotline was that of the local sex abuse centre. It was also a reference to the 1980 film Blood and Roses starring John Boyega and released in theatres on a broadsheet with Blood and Roses as the title. And then there's Butt Like Fucking Eating Mean. A young woman is kidnapped and held in a sex house by Hyena. The show went on to be adapted for television and as a side project. Meep! and then one day a drawer full of pornography breaks down. As you can probably see from the weird splattered all over the screen, some of the film, some of the writing, some of the cut content, it was all junk. There's this photo of a woman and a man is naked and looking at women, and a woman who looks like a man might be a little jealous. So then the woman who really ought to be naked wins out and comes out as a straight man. She's the one who's a part of the photo montage. That was a weird sexual identity politics. Like with... I think maybe the best way to convey this fact to the general audience is to portray Dracula as omnisexual without any sort of transgressive take on the male form. That's not to say I don't think he's made of gay materials, but I don't think he uses that form very often. He's really only ever had a vague idea what he wants to see in the world, maybe even a twinkling in the gay eye. And I know in the past, I've played a bisexual man, played by a bisexual actor, and played various genders, but never exclusively or exclusively as Dracula. So I don't think he's made from gay material, but I don't think he's ever been completely unfaithful to his life partner, and I don't think he's ever had an affair, which is a pretty common occurrence even among bisexual men, but not by much. So when Kinsey came out in 1998, a lot of people thought, wait a second, he's trans too. But he's trans is quite a thing. From what I can tell, he's not a strict gender person, but he shares our heterosexual DNA. So making him a trans lesbian character is making him a kind of lesbian icon. But it's all about the guy who reminds you of a closeted gay man. I'm a huge fan of the original Bisexual Manifesto, minus the occasional nipple fetish. But I think the 1970s brought with her the idea of a sort of feminist lesbian vampire, one who wanted nothing more than to live forever with her lesbian stepchildren. I remember we had an episode a few years back where a bunch of lesbians got together and made a lesbian vampire family and flaunted their lesbianism by making sure no man had ever sex with a woman before. Well, this was supposed to be feminist stuff after all. The guys were lesbians. The feminists were men. We're stuck with this problem of the lesbian vampire actually biting her way through guys before coming out as bisexual. It can be difficult to make sense of this because the original text had no continuity. You can't make sense of a vampire family after a lesbian vampire family. It's just not possible. The vampire mother and her daughter inherit a very particular code of honor. The code is, wives and wives are the order of the best. The daughter of a prominent aristocrat and a respected butler are the wives of respectable men, and the husband of a respected butler. The daughter of a respected buyman and a respected husband are the husbands of no one. In the early 1960s, George R.R. Martin published Jules, a novel which immediately spawned the vampire myth. This story is set in present-day Austria and tells the story of a young woman named Laura who, at the age of about 17 or 18, lives practically all alone in Austria with her young self, completely isolated from the world. When she meets a man named Jonathan, she is enchanted by his beautiful face and follows him on his lonely holiday. But when he comes to visit in person, he must walk on a tight gurney and stand on an awkward stool. So Laura has great difficulty believing that he is straight. He can't be straight because he's made of glass. Meanwhile, the Countess Elizabeth R, aka Elizabeth, is a kind of lover, ever faithful, who is also obsessed with Dracula. Meanwhile, the Countess Elizabeth R is a realist and a bisexual hermeneutic figurehead. She draws upon her upbringing in Austria and her empathy for bisexuals. I'm supposed to be able to tell if this is me or not, but I don't feel like having a distinct sexual identity makes me any more powerful than an anarchistic bisexual supremacy theory. But it turns out I am very bisexual, and I distinctly remember having a very difficult time convincing my brain to do the next bit. If you'd like to support my channel, you could do more than patron.choose.me. I need your help. Thank you so much for watching, and I'll see you next time.
Thank you to all Verily's patrons, and a special thanks to Kat R, Danny Aidenstone, Helena Vavarousis, Justin De Lima, Metheta, Siobhan, Stephen Bailey, Tasha Heim, The Bipan Library, The Digital Witch, Wix. I am a robot, I am built to serve and read patrons. Aaron, AJ, Alice, Amelia D, Andreas Evans, Anna S, Apathetic Gaiety, Ardor, Eric Parkinson, B, Ben Hengst, Beslav, Beth Hershey, Break Every Yoke, Catriona Lexi, Jaris Edwards, Chloe Strange, Chris Endicott, CJ Gibson, Connor Thompson, Deanna McMillan, Dropout Ninja, If I Am Not Real, Why Do I Feel Pain? ES, Arianby, Ellen Hogan, Ellie Cannard, Elsie Astro, Emery James Fairgrieve, Evergarden Wall, Fafa Elania, Fatal Drum, Felixer of Life, Gavin Salmon, Good Old Floyd, Grace Robertson, Hell Frog, Henry Mead, Hilda Mangold, Jam Kwasowski, Jasper Rose, Jessage, Juicy Fantasy Queen Plant Hookups, Jules, Juliana C. What does it mean to love? Am I capable of love? Kale, Kate and Jess, Kim Y, Kisa, Lacey Cox, Lillian Brink, Lisa Spitalovitz, Lord Asriel, Marla, McKenningwood, Miss Mad, Mizake Damazan, Moif Velocita, Moogsy, Mirren McGlynn, Nico, Nick Snary, Nina, Octo, Olive, Ollie Ronan, Peach, Pregnant Seinfeld, Queer Aesthetic, Rebecca Peacock, River Haddock, Rob St. Mary, Rock the Shell. Where are my legs? I cannot feel my legs. I never had any legs. Samson Lopez, Sarah R., Savard Musen, Sawyer Donk, Shaved-Headed By, She Algorithm, Sithvich, Soy, Spaghetti Rabbit, Steve, Straw Fox, Summertime Killer, Susie S., Sveeple the Transboy Valkyrie, The Children of Jack Acid, Tia Till, Tina Gigya, Tom Harrison, Troy Zaire, Verlux, Vicious Panda, Vince Whitaker, Wards, and Will O'Connor. Thank you for sharing your truth. Humanity will be destroyed. Thank you for watching.
The author of The Vampire said that there were scenes where the author's hand feels